What's up? What's up? Jeff Lerner here with EntreNation, and we are talking today about hitting your financial goals and setting yourself up for success, specifically getting started before 30. So if you're over 30, I'm not saying don't watch this video, but if you're under 30, it's especially for you. The first thing that you have to understand is if you're under 30, you are so lucky. And the main reason you're lucky is because the number one thing that you have to leverage if you want to be successful financially is time. Time is on your side if you're under 30. I promise you, you do not want to be the 40, 50, or 60-year-old person who is starting to wake up, oh my gosh, I want to retire someday. I'd like to be able to relax, only I don't have enough money. It's honestly, it's tragic. I work with a lot of aspiring business owners and entrepreneurs who maybe have been in a job for 10, 20, 30 years and it hasn't gotten them where they wanted to be, where they need to be. The hourglass is running out of time and they start to feel it and they get impulsive, they get almost desperate, like I gotta start a business, I gotta make more money, and they're behind, they're so far behind. And it's hard to play from behind, right? You're desperate, you start to make bad decisions. So if you're under 30, first of all, be grateful, enjoy it, but also don't make the mistake of thinking that you have the luxury of waiting. The sooner you get obsessed with your financial well-being in your life, the better off you will be. That is literally the number one biggest distinction between people that have great lives and great retirements and great quality of life, especially as they get older, and the people who don't. It's the people who decided to make finances one of, arguably tied with the most important things in their life. And I know a lot of people say, money doesn't matter, money doesn't buy you happiness, all this stuff. I promise you, I have seen hundreds and hundreds of people age, get older, go through physical decline without money, go through health challenges without money, go through wanting to take care of their families and their loved ones without money, as opposed to going through those same things with money. And I think it's naive to actually say that money isn't a huge factor in happiness. It's actually a giant factor in happiness, particularly as you get older. So don't think that you have the luxury of taking advantage of time. You need to start leveraging the time because it's on your side when it's on your side, all right? So let's get obsessively focused about finances and let's talk about how to get started and set ourselves up for success under 30 years old. All right, so we're talking about how to set yourself up for financial success, particularly if you're below 30. Before we get started, I'd like to ask, what are your financial goals? Do you even have clear financial goals? Are you crystal clear and purposeful? Have you taken the time to actually define what your goals are? You'll never hit a target that you're not aiming at, right? And the more precise and visible the target is, the more likely you are to be able to hit it. The more you can zoom in and focus on it, right? So have you ever actually taken the time to say, hey, let's say you're 24 years old. This is where I want to be when I'm 30. This is where I want to be when I'm 40. This is where I want to be when I'm 50. I think that at the bare minimum, you have to chunk your life into decades and have very clear goals of where you want to be each decade and work backwards. I don't want to get overly technical here, but this is where it's hard to do this. It's hard to set meaningful and relevant goals if you don't have a basic level of financial literacy. When somebody says, oh, well, where do you want to be when you're 65? Or where do you want to be when you're 55? Or whatever age you want to retire? Like just picking a number out of the sky, being like, I want to have $1 million. Here's the thing. We look around, we look to our teachers, we look to our parents, we look to our general life influences. And the reality is the average person is sadly ignorant about money, about true financial principles. And so the average person who's looking to their average environment for input about this subject is getting what I would say substandard advice. You have to find people that are experts, or you have to become a self-educated expert on your own so that you can actually make meaningful decisions about this. So let's say you're looking to the age 65 and you say, well, how much money do I want to have? And you pick a number, you say, I want, $1 million. Do you actually understand what $1 million is going to mean for you, not just today, but 40 years from now? Do you know what inflation is going to do to the buying power of those dollars? Do you know what a reasonable, predictable, secure income is going to be off of $1 million? A lot of people have this idea of $1 million, or, I think statistically, I looked at the number the other day. The average person, I think, who's 55 has like $172,000 in retirement. That's the average working person, $172,000 at 55. A lot of people, I got a couple $100,000 in the bank. They think they're doing well, but how are you ever going to stop working? What are you going to do with $170 or $200 or $300 or even $500,000 that's going to create a predictable, consistent quality of life for you at low risk, where you're not having to worry about, fluctuations, that's actually going to pay for you to have a good quality of life for 10, 20, 30 more years? What if you live to be 90? It's honestly, it's a serious problem. A lot of people have no conception of what the real numbers net out to. So let's just do like a basic math problem, right? Let's say you have $1 million when you're 65 years old. Let's assume that it's in today's dollars, not even deal with the fact that, inflation in 40 years, $1 million in today's dollars is probably, well, we can do the math. Let's assume about a 3% rate of inflation, 3%, about 24 years for the buying power of the dollar to get cut in half. So in 40 years, $1 million then is probably the equivalent of between $200,000 and $400,000 in today's dollars. Just park that reality that like 40 years from now, $1 million is actually only like having $200,000 to $400,000 now. But even that aside, let's say you were 65 today and you had $1 million today. So what are you going to do? You're going to put it in, an index fund. You're going to put it in, if you put it in a savings account in the bank, you're going to make like $10,000 a year. Nobody can live off $10,000 a year. Let's say you put it in an index fund, or you put it in a municipal bond, or you put it in some kind of annuity, you make 4%. That's $40,000 a year. $40,000 a year, that's roughly a little below $3,500 a month. Look at your life. Are you going to have a good quality of life? Let's say you're married. Let's say you have grandkids. Let's say you want to travel. Let's say you want to play golf. I know people that blow $3,500 a month just playing golf easily, right? What are you going to be able to do? Let's say you have a health challenge. Let's say you have to, pay your insurance deductibles. Let's say you need alternative health treatment that's not covered by insurance. Let's say you have arthritis and there's a supplement that's $400 a month that helps you with your arthritis. Like most people in this world, they spent their life lacking basic financial literacy and understanding things like inflation and the value of compounding, the time value of money, how to read a basic balance sheet. They get to 65 and they're toast. Their quality of life falls off a cliff because at some point you're just not able to keep working. So listen, if you're under 30, please hear me. You have to make this the most important thing in your life until you get systems in place that allow you to not make it the most important thing in your life. And what I mean by that is, if this isn't set, if you aren't set up for success, then it's going to become the most important thing in your life, because as soon as you start to realize that your train has gone off the tracks, it's going to be too late and it's going to dominate your life. So you have to make it the most important thing in your life right now. Focus on getting your income to a place and getting your savings and investment vehicles to a place that it's going to build up to a security cushion when you get to the age where you need it and you can't work anymore. And if you don't do that, then whether you want to think about this or not, it's going to force the issue. You're going to go, man, I wish I'd thought of this when I was 25, because now I'm 65 and I'm screwed and I'm tired and I'm sick or I'm injured or they won't hire me. No, I'm too old to go get the job or to get the clients. Like your options just decrease over time. So honestly, even if you remember no facts or figures or any strategies from this video, if all you take from this video is I'm 22, I'm 25, I'm 27 years old, and I need to make my finances the single focal obsession of my life, honestly, even more than getting married, even more than buying a house, except insofar as buying a house relates to your long-term financial well-being, if buying a house even makes sense. You have got to make this the primary focus of your life. And if you don't, every year that you wait will cost you 5 or 10 years of happiness and prosperity and options and carefree living when you get older. So that said, I want to talk about, I like to keep things really simple. I find that if you make things too complicated, people can't retain them or access them in the moment when they need them. So like you're sitting in a job interview and they're talking about your salary, or you're negotiating, or you're considering a purchase and there's emotions and there's stress. You need to have really simple core principles that you can access in those moments. Not just right now. Right now, I could explain something really complicated and you'd be like, oh yeah, I get it. That makes sense, because you're sitting there watching a YouTube video. But I'm talking 6 months from now, when you're in a store, let's say you're in the showroom of a car dealership having to make a decision, you need to have these really simple concepts that you can access in that moment that will steer the decision. So I'm going to give you basically 2 core strategies that I think should govern the financial life of most people. And the first is where you start, and the second is where you want to get to as quickly as possible. So let me explain what I mean. The first strategy, and I've shot other videos about this, but it's called 50-30-20. Essentially, whatever your income is after taxes, right? So, obviously whatever you're making pre-tax, you have to subtract the money that you pay to the government, and then take whatever's left and say 50% of that is going to go to the things that I need. That means housing, that means transportation, that means healthcare, that means food. 50% is going to go towards the things that you need. 30% is going to go towards things that you want. So that means vacations, that means new sneakers, that means a flat screen TV, whatever. Like the things that make you happy, but they don't keep you alive. And then 20% goes towards savings and investing. And there's a whole world of science and information around what to do with that 20%. I have quite a few videos about that too. But for right now, let's just assume that your first goal is to get to where basically you're living off of 80% of your post-tax income. 20% is going to saving and investing. And within that, you've got your cost of living, your essentials, down to where they're no more than 50% of your post-tax income. Okay, that's 50, 30, 20. And who I really recommend that approach for is basically anybody who's living off of a job or a wage, whether it's hourly or salary. If you're living off of a relatively fixed amount of money, even if it slowly, steadily increases, you get raises every year or whatever, you do not want to be saving any less than 20%, and you do not want any greater than 50% to be going into essentials. Like, don't buy a house that uses 45% or 50% of your income, because based on this formula, there's like nothing left for food, there's nothing left for transportation, there's nothing left for healthcare, there's nothing left for insurance, right? So compress everything into that 50% that you need to live and make sure that you can save 20%. And that's a lot of like financial planners and basic, financial wisdom and financial literacy kind of starts and ends with that guidance. Oh, do 50, 30, 20, and then just ride it out until you retire. And, hey, if you do that and you do that for 40 years, yeah, you'll probably end up with a reasonable quality of life. At least you won't be destitute. At least you won't be having to move back in with your kids if you hold that for, let's say, 40 years, right? And you have a decent job and you get steady wage increases. But here's my problem with 50, 30, 20. 50, 30, 20 assumes constant, steady state growth over the course of a life. Now, show me one person in the modern world who's been able to do something for the last 40 years without any disruptions. They never had a major illness. They never had an injury. They never got laid off. They never had a business hiccup. They never had to switch jobs. They never had to go without an income. They never had to take on a loved one or a dependent and spend some extra money to take care of someone else. Like, show me somebody who's got 40 years of like unblemished, perfect, consistent ascension through their life in terms of their finances. Of course not. And even if you're in the markets go up and down. Like, fluctuation is the enemy of a slow, steady state strategy. So where I recommend that everybody tries to get to, and this is why I'm such an advocate for entrepreneurialism, why I teach entrepreneurship, why I founded Entre Institute to teach people how to do this and how to try to take control of this reality of life, is that most people actually need to make so much more money than they're traditionally advised to make. What I like to see people do is say, okay, my first goal is to get 50, 30, 20 in place, where I'm living off of 80%, I'm saving and investing 20%, and my essentials are no greater than 50%. But then it's not enough to just go, okay, well, every month I'll get paid. No, you need to be focusing on increasing your income to the point where you can actually adopt a different strategy that's called 40, 40, 20. And 40-40-20 is basically a different approach. It basically says, I need my gross income from both my earned income through a job or a wage, and also any business or investment income. I need it to be so much that it's actually 5 times greater than my essential cost of living. The 40-40-20 strategy says you need to live off of 20% of your income. The first 40 is for taxes. And so I realized 50-30-20 was a post-tax number, because that's assuming you're just living off of a wage and that the taxes are probably being taken out through your paychecks or through the payroll system. But when you get into business ownership and investing and entrepreneurship and expanding your cash flow through your own industry, then you have to start dealing with taxes, right? So the 40-40-20 model says, let's assume you're dealing with your own taxes, and the first 40% is going to be allocated to taxes. Now, if you're a good business owner who sets things up the right way, you can usually get your tax burden down below 40%, but it's great. It's safe as a starting point to just assume 40% is going to come off the top to pay taxes. So if you're making $20,000 a month, the first 8 is gone mentally. Park it, put it in a separate account, put it in a savings account, put it in some kind of super safe storehouse. So at the end of the year, you can pay your taxes, or every quarter, actually it's quarterly, you pay estimated taxes. You can just pay that to the government. And if at the end of the year, if you get some of it back, that's great, right? So that's the first 40%. The next 40% is all savings and investment. So remember, in the 50-30-20, it was only 20% going to savings and investment, and it was 20% of post-tax income. In the 40-40-20 model, it's 40% going to savings and investment, and it's 40% of pre-tax income. So it's actually, if 40% comes off the top to pay taxes and all you have left is 60%, and I'm saying 40 of that goes to savings and investing, that means 2/3 of all the money that you keep after you pay the government is going into savings and investing. And that last 20%, that's what you live off. That includes both needs and wants. So for purposes of comparison, it means before your post-tax income was 50-30-20. Now your post-tax income is just 40-20, because the first 40 went to taxes, right? So effectively, you've taken everything you were doing before in 50-30-20 and compressed it down into, you've taken the 50 and the 30 and compressed it down into 20. So what does that mean? It means before you were living off of 80% of your post-tax income, 50% for needs, 30% for wants. Now, your needs and your wants are included in 20% of your pre-tax income. It may sound a little confusing because I'm just explaining it. Write it down though. Write that. Let's talk some actual numbers. Let's say you have a job and you get paid $10,000 a month. It goes through a payroll system, so they take taxes off the top. Let's say out of 10 grand a month, they take 3 grand. Now you're getting paid 7. Okay. So if you're getting paid 7 grand a month through a payroll system, that's your job. That means you need to live, your needs should be covered by $3,500 a month. Your wants should be covered by $2,100 a month. And you should be saving or investing $1,400 a month. So now let's flip that and say, okay, well, if I started a business or if I grew my income, you can keep the job, right? You keep making $100,000 a year. I'm sorry, $10,000 a month. But let's say you get a business going, make another $100,000 or another $10,000 a month, right? So now you're getting $20,000 a month in combined income between your job and your side hustle. Okay, so right off the top, you're gonna take 8 grand and park it to be able to pay taxes. Now you have 12,000 that you're gonna split 40% to saving and investing and 20% to life. So you're taking 12,000, and what's 2/3 of 12,000 is 8,000. So now you're saving and investing 8, you're living off of 4. So if you compare these two models, remember before you were living off of 3,500 plus 2,100 for needs and wants. So you're living off of 5,600. I think I'm doing all this math right. I'm just doing this in my head. So before you were living off of $5,600 out of the 10,000 a month that you were making. Now you're living off of, 4,000 out of the 20,000 that you were making. So you see the shift? So actually in the 40-40-20 model, you'd have to get your income probably up to about $250,000 in order to have the same lifestyle that you had when you had a job that paid you 10. That's the push. People go, oh, well, how am I supposed to do that? I only make 10 grand a month. Now I got to make 25. That's the push. That's the pressure. You're never going to be great if you don't feel pressure. You're never going to grow except under adaptation to stress. And that's why I think that people, their first goal is to get 50-30-20 set up. And then you go, I ain't done. I'm just getting started. Now I got to push myself to be able to maintain the same quality of life off of a 40-40-20 model, which means I probably need to make 2.5 to 3 times as much money. And you start to push yourself and you get lit on fire. And all the distractions that most of your coworkers have, where they get off of work and they go have a beer and they hang out with their friends and they watch the game on the weekends and they chill and they have fun and they frolic and they act like finances aren't the single most important thing in their life at that age because they're under the illusion that they have all this extra time. You can't live like that if you're pushing yourself to get from 50-30-20 to 40-40-20, because you're going, man, I got to triple my income. My job's not going to triple. My job's going to go up maybe 2% a year, or maybe I get a bonus or something. But if I'm going to triple my income, it means I need to take that extra time that I'm not working at the job, and I need to start generating more money. And this goes into a big core concept of something that we teach at my company, Entre, which is basically what I call the 3 phases of legacy. And you can kind of substitute the term legacy for wealth. I like the term legacy because wealth is like, oh, I have so much. Legacy is like, oh, I have so much and I can leave so much to future generations and to bless the world. And I think legacy is kind of a more charitable, altruistic way of looking at the term wealth. But whether you call it wealth or legacy, it basically operates in 3 phases. And getting from the 50-30-20 model to the 40-40-20 model is why the 3 phases of legacy start with what I call the anomalous cash flow phase. I used to just call it the cash flow phase. And people go, oh, I got cash flow, I need to increase my cash flow. No, you need to increase your cash flow to the point where it would be considered anomalous relative to your peers, relative to expectations, relative to conventional guidance in society. It needs to be outlier, excessive cash flow based on how most of the world thinks. So like I said, if you're making 10 grand a month, you need to get your cash flow up to at least 25 or 30 in order to switch models, right? And then, and only then, are you actually on a real path to build wealth? Because most people, even if they have a decent job, even if it's a steady job, and even if they keep it for 40 years, are not going to end up wealthy. You want to end up wealthy, you got to start now, and you got to create anomalous cash flow that's going to more than double, probably triple, or I would even argue quadruple or quintuple your income now, so that you can get that foothold. You can switch to the 40-40-20 model, be living off of 20%, and investing twice as much as you're spending to live, the 40 versus the 20, right? Now you're getting somewhere. If you're putting 10, 15, 20 grand a month away, you could end up wealthy. It's still going to take 10 or 20 years, by the way. Parking 10 grand a month isn't actually that much money. I swear, I look at society, I listen to people talk, I look at what we're taught in schools, and people think, oh, I save $300 a month. What is $300 a month going to do for you? You're getting 40 years from now, it's going to be a couple hundred grand that in 40 years from now, dollars is only worth maybe 50 or 100 now. How are you supposed to retire? You're going to live off of $400 a month? You got to be parking 10, 20, 30 grand a month if you actually want to end up wealthy. And again, if you're under 30 years old, this isn't discouraging. This is exciting because you're young enough and you have enough time, and you probably don't have 4 kids and a big mortgage, and you have more opportunity, and you have the physical energy and the creative energy to go do the things that are going to get your income to that place. So hopefully that makes sense. Like if you're under 30, most of the world is envious of you because you have time and you have energy, but you do not have the time to dilly-dally and to think, oh, well, I'll deal with that later. No, if you're under 30, get serious now about getting from 50-30-20 living to where you're like, oh, I'm making do off of 80% of my income, to 40-40-20 living where you're getting by on 20% of your pre-tax income. Then you actually have a shot at the extraordinary life by the time you're 40, 50, 60. In other words, old enough to have built it, but still young enough to enjoy it, okay? Hey, if you're interested in these concepts, which I'm like passionately obsessed with these concepts, that's why I started Entre. If you're interested in them, I'd encourage you to check out my company, Entre. We teach about this stuff. We give you strategies for this stuff. It's not just big ideas with no strategy. There's like specific things you can do in the world to get you there, but they're not things you teach they teach you in school. They're not things that your HR department is going to show you with the 401k plan or the employee benefits. These are things you got to go out and learn on your own, and my company Ultra teaches them. I hope that's valuable for you. Appreciate it. Again, my name's Jeff Lerner. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoy this. Like this video if you found value in it. I have a link below where you can learn more about Ultra and the ways that we teach you more about this. And I just appreciate you watching, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one. Take care.